to Hot Hero Sandwich with Judy Blume, Hal Linden, Olivia Newton-John, and Christopher Reeve. In conversation with Tom Cottle.
Were you a good student?
I was a good student in that I was able to do what the teacher wanted me to do. I was able to give answers that teachers wanted. And I swear to you, I got all the way through high school that way without ever stopping to think. It was you raised your hand to give the teacher the answer she or he wanted. It was humiliating to raise your hand and say something, and the teacher would say, no, you, and call on the next person. That, to me, was not me. That was American education while I was growing up. And I have this terrible fear that it hasn't changed all that much.
I don't think I was a great student. Not that I think I was capable. I had the brain power, but I didn't have the concentration. Not for that. I found that I had it in singing, but at school I didn't. Everything seemed, I was always terribly confused by everything. Geography, math, I was always confused, and languages, and sometimes I wish I could start school now because I'd probably benefit from it a lot more.
Hot Hero Sandwich will return after these messages. We now return to Hot Hero Sandwich.
Did you ever do things that the other kids laughed at?
I don't think so. I didn't have any... I mean, when you think about it, not nearly as much as we laughed at other kids, you know, who had the terrible misfortune of having to wear thick glasses, or who had a speech impediment, or anything that we could grab onto to indicate our superiority over them.
I was weirdo. I don't know. They called me Lobster at school because whenever I do any physical exercise, I turn absolutely beet red. Look like a cooked lobster. I was 6 feet tall by the time I was 12 years old, but I had no coordination to go with it. You know, somebody went up like asparagus, but the muscles didn't catch up. I had Osgood-Schlater's disease, which is where the tendons don't keep up with the bones or something like that. The effect is you look like a kangaroo first, you know, trying to walk.
Some kids grow up thin. Some kids find out that they're a little fat, that they're a little tall, that they're a little small. Talk to me a little bit about Judy Blume growing up now in terms of your body.
I can only tell you about being very small. In the first grade, we had to walk on line in size places. I was always the first. I was small and I was short. I was little. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like when I moved to Florida and I went to the playground for a kickball game, and the two big 7th graders who picked teams, no one picked me. No one knew me. No one knew whether I was coordinated or could hit the ball or not, but I was picked last, always. I wasn't picked. It was, you get her, or I get her, because I was little. And I hated that. And then when I got to be in 5th and 6th grade, then my friends started to grow taller and develop, become fuller, get breasts, get their periods. I wanted that more than anything in the whole world. Oh boy, I even lied. I lied in 6th grade and said I had my period because my friends did.
Was there anybody in your life who gave you special information about sex, how things worked or didn't work? Or is that something that you just picked up somewhere? Or might still pick up?
I haven't picked it up yet.
Well, can I recommend a good book?
I'm still searching. You hear most of it anyway from at school. you discuss it with your girlfriends. You usually have the facts all wrong. And I'd read a few books and things, but I think I got the basic, it's about time you knew, when I was about 13, probably.
Did you have anybody that you could talk to about
my sexual enlightenment came from my older cousins and brother, who were not really great experts, I found out later on in life.
When we were about 12, we looked through books. We wanted to find information about sex, and we really didn't know how to do it. And I can remember once opening up my World Book Encyclopedia to S and reading, and there it was, sex, it said, and then going through it furiously. And it didn't tell me anything. I mean, it talked about plants and things. And I was so furious, I slammed it shut and threw it across the room. I was just really angry.
You know, they always used to have these sex education counselors and stuff would come to the school, you know, and I was always on the committee, let's have more sex education in the school, right? You know, and they do these things. And some very nice and very intelligent doctor like Mary Calderon or somebody would show up at the school and in assembly hall would say, now, the male sperm goes from, you know, and in the ovaries, once, you know, and they're doing all this talk about what happens, and everyone is sitting there, you know, and this is all part of biology. And what you really want to know is, how do I get further than just kissing her on the doorstep? Would someone please tell me that? Would someone please tell me, now her parents are away, you're alone in the house, no one's around, and you're on your own. And that's when I couldn't be myself. That's when I couldn't just be totally relaxed. And I think what you got to do is just realize is that, for God's sake, if you're 15, it doesn't all have to happen today. But the feeling is, when you're 15, is, damn, I want it now.
Hot Hero Sandwich will return after these messages. We now return to Hot Hero Sandwich.
There were boys that I liked very, very much, and I so wanted them to like me back, and they didn't. And that hurt. You know, I don't know why any human wastes time on that. I think as you grow, you find out, you know, well, if this person doesn't see in me what I see in him, then I shall look for someone else to appreciate me, and I'll find someone else to appreciate. But when you're young, you cry yourself to sleep a lot. I certainly did.
I think I went out with a few boys like once, and then I met the one chap. I was with him for quite a few years.
What's his first name?
Ian.
Ian?
Ian.
What was that like? Was that falling in love for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
Can you put those experiences into words?
Oh gosh, I don't think you can explain that. I guess falling in love for the first time is the most painful, wonderful thing. And as I suppose you idolize them and never see any faults. And as you get older, it gets more difficult.
How did it go with girls?
Well, to be quite honest, I used, now I don't know if anyone's going to believe me, but I'll tell you the truth anyway, which is usually the hardest to believe. I was really glad that I was so involved in the theater and I could get out of so many Saturday nights. Because then if I could say, I've got to do a performance of 12th Night tonight, you know, that saved me having to agonize from about Tuesday until Friday or even Saturday afternoon. What am I going to do about Saturday night? Who am I going to get to go out with me? What girl that I have a mad crush on is possibly going to, you know, respond favorably to a phone call?
That's when I, you know, kissed my mother regularly for having made me play the saxophone, the clarinet at the time, but then by that time the saxophone, because I could say, hey, Saturday night I'm playing over at the dance, you know, if you're going to be in the neighborhood, I'd love to see you. You know, it was easy. It sure took the edge off a lot of that awful adolescent period of my life. And there were times, for instance, when I didn't have a job on Saturday night, where I would, rather than face the prospect of the mating dance, as it were, that everyone was going through, it was so painful to me that I would rather I wouldn't go out on a date. I would go with an older cousin or something, and we'd go to a movie or something.
You have shared an experience with many young people, that of meeting new step-parents. Can you go back in time and recall for me some of those early moments when you first met those people?
Oh, I definitely remember the first time my stepfather ever showed up. My mother and my brother and I lived in this little half a house I was telling you about in Princeton. One day, this very nice man showed up in a Buick. We all got into the car, and we're driven sort of around in circles around Princeton, had no idea where we were going, and we ended up at the county jail. And and what he had arranged was a tour of the police department. And we got, I was 5, I was 6, my brother was 5. And we got our fingerprints taken, you know, on the blotter. And then he would show us, you know, where the judge's chamber, where the guy sits with the gavel. And I remember sitting up behind where the judge sits and, you know, big with the gavel, and, you know, and just getting us into, he won us over by play.
Hot Hero Sandwich will return after these messages. We now return to Hot Hero Sandwich.
I think I was happy a lot of the time. I was a fairly successful kid in that I succeeded without much trouble in school. I had friends. I wanted to be popular. This is something that I think about a lot now because I get so many letters from kids that say, I want to be popular. I would do anything. I would give up anything that I have, anything that I can do in order to be popular. And I find that very distressing. The need to be popular, and yet when I was a kid I had it too. I wanted to be popular more than anything else.
We're living in a culture which is very me now, a gratification syndrome, you know. I must have results right away. I must perceive happiness now. This is what's behind all these self-help religions, you know, Est and Scientology and all this stuff, is what is me is, and it's all right, and this, that, and the other. And I think instant gratification is something to be avoided. What is more important is to build lasting relationships and have patience with people, because there's a lot of love going around and you should just realize that it's there.
Was going to church or being a religious person mean anything to you?
Yeah, initially. Then when I went to this church school, and we used to have, we had to get to school at 9 o'clock, and you had church or chapel for half an hour before school every morning, and there were prayers and hymns and stuff. And I got used to that. I mean, it was part of every day. And then I remember one day, we had religious instruction every Wednesday for an hour or something, and I don't remember the question, I don't remember what it was, but I remember asking the Reverend a question, and he couldn't answer me, or he went around it a million ways and didn't make sense to me. And from that day on, I sort of lost interest in it and didn't believe in it. And I was due to be confirmed about a month later. And I said to my mother, I want to be confirmed because I don't feel the same way about it anymore.
My father went to temple once, twice a year, like, you know, most. He did not go every week. He did not bring me every week. He did give me a religious training. I did study for a bar mitzvah. I did get a religious training, but he did not lecture me, and yet somehow I gleaned this philosophy from it. Sometime, a year and a half ago, last year, I was off doing a film, and got home after the shooting that day, and I was exhausted. I just kind of collapsed and turned the television on. It was the first night of Holocaust, and I watched it. I said to myself, gee, I wonder if my kids saw it. And I realized I was in a different time zone, and I called back here, and one daughter answered, And I said, are you guys watching Holocaust? And they said, no, we're watching whatever it was. I said, well, no matter what you're watching, turn it off and put on Holocaust. And I don't even remember who it was who answered the phone. And she said to me, what's a Holocaust? And there I was in Texas, dripping tears. I said, wait a minute, something went wrong somewhere. There was no greater influence in my life than that event and what was going on with that event. And yet somehow I didn't get over to the next generation. How did my father do it? How did he get me to feel what he felt without belaboring it, without lecturing? And somehow I had missed the boat in getting it over to my kids.